The Rockets just blew an 18-point fourth quarter lead against the Knicks, and it's safe to say that the Kevin Durant saga going on right now in Houston is not what it was supposed to be. So I want to revisit the Kevin Durant trade and see how big of a mistake this trade was for the Rockets. I have a lot of opinions on this trade, and I've talked about it for endless amounts of hours. Almost all of my best friends are Rockets fans, and there's a lot to unpack, but I want to start with that the year before the Rockets trade for KD, they are the 2 seed in one of the most stacked Western Conferences we've ever seen. And looking at this roster, this was this team's first playoff appearance since the Harden era in the entire wow factor Rockets rebuild, and almost none of the players had even a single game of playoff experience. Just look at the top roster. I can't stress this enough, but this team just won 52 games in the Western Conference, and they are the 2 seed just behind the 68 win Thunder. This team was cooking. And like I said, they are going into their first playoff series post-Harden era against the Golden State Warriors, who were on an insane hot streak since trading for Jimmy Butler, and they had so much more playoff experience than the Rockets. Rockets fans, and honestly many NBA fans, were excited to see Alperen Şengün and Jalen Green in a playoff setting to see if they are playoff droppers or playoff risers. Obviously, it's only one series, but people were excited nonetheless. And in a back-and-forth series where the Rockets would go down 3-1 and still force a Game 7, a 7-game series against the Warriors with Steph Curry and many Jimmy Butler games, the Warriors would win, but the Rockets get their first playoff series down, and it was an exciting one going 7 games. Like I said, the main spotlight for Rockets fans was Şengün and Jalen Green, and in this series, Şengün would average 21 points, 12 rebounds, and 5 assists, showing out that he can play at a high level in the playoffs. And then there was Jalen Green, who definitely underperformed in this 7-game series. He would basically get all of these stats carried from one game where he would drop 38 points. But we have to remember, this is Jalen Green's first ever playoff series. Can we really knock him that much for it? And yes, some Rockets fans were really worried about Jalen Green, saying that he was going to be a playoff dropper his entire career, and others were saying, no, you're reading too much into it. But overall, the team is super young. Amen Thompson, Jalen Green, Alperen Şengün, Jabari Smith Jr., this team was going to be back. It was their first time ever in the playoffs, and they were the 2 seed. They looked great in the regular season. They're going to be back. And the timeline from the fans and from the average NBA fan was looking at the Rockets as, yeah, they might not be title contenders next year, but over the next 5 to 7 years, if they can keep most of the core together, they're going to have multiple opportunities at a championship run. And that was the beauty of the Rockets. They were right there with the Thunder, with teams like the Spurs, young teams that are rising up and going to have a young core for a really long time that they can keep together and keep contending. It looked like they were right there with everyone else, and everything was in the palm of their hands. They were going to have multiple opportunities at this with Jalen Green, Şengün, Amen, Jabari, even vets like Fred were going to stay on the team. Dillon Brooks was a huge defensive leader. It looked like the Rockets had everything. And then that offseason, rumors started to circle about Kevin Durant. Obviously, a lot of rumors were happening at the trade deadline earlier that year that he wanted a trade, and after the Suns didn't even make the play-in, it was pretty obvious that he was going to be on the move. Nobody really knew where he was going to go. There was rumors of Spurs, there was rumors of a bunch of different teams, but ultimately the Rockets were also in those rumors. And I remember when I heard for the first time that the Rockets were in the rumored trade for Kevin Durant, it made no sense to me, because I knew if they traded for Kevin Durant, they were going to have to give up a young piece of their core, whether that be Şengün, Amen, or Jalen Green, that something was going to have to be given up in order to get Kevin Durant, and you would be breaking up that young core that just got you the 2 seed in the Western Conference. And the diehard Rockets fans that I were talking to at the time were saying there's no way the front office would trade for Kevin Durant after you were just the 2 seed with this young core. It's just rumors. Maybe the Rockets are throwing out really weak packages just to get into the mix. And then boom, randomly, Kevin Durant traded to the Rockets for Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, a first-round pick, and 5 second-round picks. The Rockets did it. They broke up their young core. What? Did they really just give up on Jalen Green, the guy that they drafted with the number 2 pick just 4 years ago and only had 1 playoff series? That's all they needed to see to give up on Jalen Green fully and ship him away? And obviously, Dillon Brooks was mainly in this deal for salary reasons, but losing him on the Rockets has been a huge detriment to the team's defense And not just that, but their culture. Dillon Brooks was a vocal and cultural leader for the Rockets. With all of that said, it's time to officially change lenses on Houston. They are no longer that young team that's going to have a lot of windows in order to contend. They have 2 to 3 years with Kevin Durant now, and they need to win now. The championship needs to come with Kevin Durant. And I know this doesn't matter that much, but this is the preseason odds to win the finals. The Rockets were ranked 6th, and I think that's about what they would be even if they didn't trade for Kevin Durant. I know this doesn't matter, but I just thought it was interesting and wanted to put it in here. And obviously, Kevin Durant has a long history of messing up with teams ever since the Warriors, going to the Nets, forcing his way out, going to the Suns, forcing his way out. Now he is on the Rockets. Hopefully this doesn't happen with them as we are entering the later stages of his career, and he can just play the last years he has on the Rockets and maybe win a championship with them. And interestingly enough, through the first 36 games of the season, the Rockets would actually have a worse record than when they had Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks than with Kevin Durant. And the Suns, who just traded Kevin Durant, would actually have a better record after losing him and adding Jalen Green, who did not play a game at this point, and Dillon Brooks. And it seems like the Suns officially unlocked Dillon Brooks, averaging 21 points per game, being that second in command next to Devin Booker because Jalen Green has been out, and the Suns are playing amazing defensive basketball with Dillon Brooks as the leader. And now back to the Rockets. This is a great screenshot to unpack, but the Rockets last season, 34-21 going into the All-Star break. This season, 33-20, so about the same record, but games from key players missed. Last season, Jabari, Eason, and Adams kind of leading the team with missed games. This season, obviously, Fred hasn't played a single game this season, and a lot of the Rockets fans are putting their detriment and their losses and their mistakes and the things that they aren't good at on missing Fred VanVleet. And yes, the Rockets probably weren't exactly where they wanted to be going into the All-Star break. Maybe they wanted to be a little bit of a higher seed, being the 2 seed last year. This year, hanging around maybe the 4 or 5 seed. But going into the All-Star break, it actually seemed like Kevin Durant was maybe on his best behavior he's ever been on with a team. No controversy or anything. Well, that obviously didn't hold up for long. During All-Star Sunday, and I mean like during the games, you guys have heard it by now. You've seen all the screenshots. KD's burner account gets exposed. Obviously, we're talking more about the trade here in the state of the Rockets than the KD files, and you guys have probably seen so many things by then, but can we really say we're surprised? Kevin Durant on a burner account tweeting horrible things about his teammates. If I told you that would happen before the season, would you really be shocked if I said that? Probably not. Now that we're back and caught up to present day, looking back at this trade, can you really convince me that this was a good trade for the Rockets? For me, it's an absolute no. Trading one of your young cornerstone pieces of the franchise and your defensive leader for an aging Kevin Durant that in 2 years his contract's going to be up, and if you don't get anything for him and you don't win a championship with him, you gave up Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks in that first round pick for nothing. And honestly, what did the Rockets think would be different about them than Brooklyn and Phoenix? Because if we remember the Brooklyn saga with Kevin Durant, there was all this controversy and everything that came in later, but with the playoff runs, they had that one that was cut short because his foot was on the line, and then they had the other one where they got swept in the first round by the Celtics. And then in Phoenix, he joins the team in the middle of the season, they make it to the second round and then lose, and then the next year they get swept in the first round by Memphis and Anthony Edwards, and then the next year they miss the play-in, and they had no incentive to tank. They didn't even have their own pick. So my question to the Rockets front office, what do you think would be different about your own team? Because now with Kevin Durant on the team, he is going to be the focal point, and we've seen what happened in the last couple of playoff runs with Kevin Durant, and it wasn't pretty. So you were willing to break up this core that just got you the 2 seed in a stacked Western Conference and only had one playoff series together before you completely gave up on the core, trading your defensive leader and your young shooting guard in Jalen Green. This makes no sense to me, and I think the Rockets deserve what they're getting right now. The Rockets as a team, not Rockets fans. Rockets fans, I'm sorry. This guy has completely cooked you. He didn't go out and get you a point guard at the trade deadline either, and then obviously the Kevin Durant trade, not what you guys were looking for, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Sorry I had to get a little hate off my chest. I'm a really big, Jalen Green supporter, so seeing them give up on him like this just really hurt. But subscribe, like, comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace, love you.